Hey guys, welcome to the revision lecture of utility analysis. Meaning of utility. Utility is the want satisfying capacity of a commodity or service. This utility analysis concept, it explains the consumer's behavior in relation to maximizing the satisfaction. Now let us move on to features of utility. Features of utility. Number one, relative concept. Utility depends on time to time and place to place. It changes from time to time and place to place. Hence, it is relative concept. Second, subjective concept. Subjective means psychological. Utility is a psychological concept and hence it differs from person to person. Third, ethically neutral or morally colorless concept. That means we are just checking whether the commodity or service has utility or not, whether it is good or bad. Morally, it's not considered, and hence we say that utility is a ethically neutral concept. It does not consider good or bad. Point number four, differs from usefulness. Usefulness is different and utility is different. Sometimes a commodity may not be useful for us, for example alcohol, but still it has utility. Next, point number five, fifth feature of utility, differs from pleasure. For example, whenever we are sick, we take injections. Doctor gives us injection which doesn't give us pleasure, but still it has high utility for us. Next, point number six, differs from satisfaction. See, apply the logic here. Utility is present in the commodity and hence we buy it, whereas satisfaction can be derived only after consumption. So utility is already present, satisfaction is derived after consumption. Point number seven, hypothetical or imaginative measurement. Since we have seen the concept of utility is psychological and hence we can't put it in numbers. That's why we say that utility's measurement is hypothetical or imaginative. Point number eight, multi-purpose utility. Some commodities, some services have multiple utilities. For example, water and electricity, it can be put to several uses. Point number nine, intensity of wants. Utility of a commodity depends mainly upon intensity of want. If our want or need is more urgent, we find more utility. If the want is less urgent, we find less utility. 10th feature of utility, basis of demand. Utility, the concept of utility acts as a basis of demand because before buying any commodity, we consider its utility. If we find utility from a commodity, we buy that commodity, we make demand for the commodity. Otherwise, we don't demand that commodity. So that's it. These were the features of utility. I explained 10 features. You may write 8 only, that will do. Moving to the next, types of utility. We are going to study 6 types of utility. First is form utility. Now here the word form refers to shape, size, etc. Form utility, when a carpenter makes furniture from wood, form utility is created. Second, place utility. A product or commodity, whenever it is transported from the place of plenty to the place of scarcity, at that time place utility is created. Third type is time utility. Time utility means when the product becomes more useful, when the product finds more utility due to change in time or season, that's called time utility. For example, sweaters in winters, umbrellas in rainy season, monsoon, etc. Next is service utility. When the professionals like doctors, lawyers, teachers, etc. provide services, thereby service utility is created. Fifth type, knowledge utility. Whenever regarding any new idea or any new technology or something, we come to know about how to use it correctly. We gain knowledge about that particular technology or that particular thing, thereby knowledge utility is created. Point number 6, possession utility. Whenever a product is transferred from the seller to the buyer, possession utility is created. Once we possess that, once we buy anything, at that time we experience this possession utility. So here I finish with the types of utility. We learned 6 types: form, place, time, service, knowledge and possession. Moving on to the next, concepts of utility. In this chapter, we are studying two main concepts of utility upon which the entire chapter is there: total utility and marginal utility. See the word total utility first. From the name itself, we come to know whenever we just add up the entire utility we got from the consumption of a given commodity, when we add up everything total, that becomes the total utility. And marginal utility means, the word marginal means additional. So whenever we go on consuming the product, suppose I consumed 7 mangoes and my utility was say 28, and after that I consumed one more mango, say 8th unit of mango I consumed, which I actually didn't needed, but still I consumed, and hence from that mango I got only one utility. Now my total utility say became 29. Then the additional one utility I derived, that is called as marginal utility. Marginal means additional utility derived from the consumption of last unit of a commodity. So those were the concepts: total utility and marginal utility. Now after this, we are starting with the main question of this chapter, law of DMU. Be attentive all of you. Please pay full attention. Starting with law of DMU. This law was initially proposed by Professor Gaussen but discussed in detail by Professor Alfred Marshall in his book Principles of Economics, published in 1890. Do remember this intro because it is useful for you people while writing the law of demand as well as supply. We got the same intro because those laws also explained by Professor Alfred Marshall. I repeat the intro. Law of DMU proposed by Professor Gaussen but discussed in detail by Professor Alfred Marshall in his book Principles of Economics, published in 1890. Moving on to the statement of the law. As all of you know by this time, statement of the law always has to be learned as it is. No change in the statement of the law, please. According to Professor Alfred Marshall, try to remember with me only, try to mug up with me only. Other things remaining constant. Now this phrase is used for the assumptions laid down of the law. So always the law will start with this particular certain assumptions laid down by a particular economist, whoever mentioning the law, whoever is putting forward the law. So always the law starts with other things remaining constant. Now I go for the actual statement. Other things remaining constant, the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase in his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. Now let me explain in simple words. In simple words, the additional benefit means marginal benefit, marginal utility, which a person derives, means whenever we are consuming something, then whatever additional benefit, whatever marginal utility we are getting out of the consumption of a particular commodity, that marginal utility goes on diminishing with every increase in the stock, with every additional consumption or every additional increase in the stock, the marginal utility goes on diminishing. That is the law we are going to study. I repeat the statement twice. Try to learn it with me only. I start with the statement of law of DMU. Other things remaining constant, the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase in his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. That's it. I repeat statement for the last time now. Other things remaining constant, the additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase in his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. That's it. Now let us move on to the assumptions of the law. Now what are the assumptions? Assumptions means certain conditions laid down by Dr. Alfred Marshall for the working of the law. Dr. Alfred Marshall says that if you follow these certain rules and regulations, if you follow these certain conditions, then only my law can be tested, then only my law will work. What are those conditions? Let us see one by one. Assumptions of the law of DMU. Number one, rationality. Dr. Alfred Marshall says that the person should be a rational consumer on whom this law is tested. A consumer should be a rational individual who wants to maximize his satisfaction from the consumption. Second assumption, cardinal measurement. Though in features we learned that this concept of utility is hypothetical or imaginative, but still for the presentation and calculation of marginal utility, Dr. Alfred Marshall has assumed that utility can be measured in numbers, cardinal measurement. Third assumption, homogeneity. Dr. Alfred Marshall assumes that all the units are of consumption, all the units whatever we are going to consume are homogeneous, that is uniform in respect of size, shape, taste, design, etc. Then fourth assumption is continuity. It is assumed that whenever a consumer is consuming the commodity, it should be continuous consumption. There shouldn't be any gap in the consumption. Then next is constancy. During the entire process of consumption, the consumer's taste, habit, preferences, etc. choices should remain constant, and here even it is assumed that marginal utility of money also remains constant. Next assumption, reasonability. Whatever unit of consumption is, it should be of reasonable size, it should be reasonable, it should neither be too big nor too small. Too big unit can't be consumed, like 1 2 3 4 we can't consume if the unit is too big, and if the consumption unit is too small, then also it's very difficult to calculate the utility, and hence it should be reasonable. Number seven, seventh assumption, divisibility. Whatever unit of consumption, that should be divisible into small units for the better calculation. Number 8, single want. Here it is assumed by Dr. Alfred Marshall that we are going to check and we are going to see the satisfaction of single want of a consumer at a time. We are considering that the commodity is in a position to satisfy single want at that time. Next, we got schedule and diagram as usual. See here, if you need details, please go to the detailed lecture which I have already posted. This is revision lecture, so I am just going in short. We had considered 7 units of consumption, and then we got the diagram marginal utility which is falling. In the initial stage, marginal utility falls. At one point of time, at the consumption of 6th unit, it becomes 0, and then if the consumption is continued even after getting 0 utility, then the marginal utility will enter into negative, which is shown by the shaded area at the consumption of 7th unit. On the board I have shown it with the shaded area, which is known as disutility. That portion is disutility experienced by the consumer. So up till now we finish intro, statement, assumption, schedule, diagram. Now moving on to the last part of the law, that is exceptions to the law of DMU. Now some of you may be in doubt whether to write everything. No, whatever is being asked in the exam, you write accordingly. Sometimes they ask explain the law of DMU with assumption, then you write only assumption, don't write exception. Sometimes they ask with exception, then you mention exception, then you may skip assumption or just mention the points of assumption. Whichever is specifically asked, you have to give detail of that. And I hope you know that rest of the things, that means intro, statement, schedule, diagram, this is the compulsory part of the law. Only you have choice between assumptions and exceptions, whichever is asked. And if nothing is mentioned, then you will explain both in short, assumptions as well as exceptions. So continuing with my exceptions. Exceptions to the law of DMU. Number 1, hobbies. Hobbies or rare collection. In case of hobbies or rare collections, like some people have hobbies of collecting old coins, some rare paintings, some collections we have, then in that case this law of DMU will not apply, because in case of hobbies such as collection of various coins and stamps, rare paintings, etc. As the stock of these things increases with a person, even his marginal utility rises. And hence, this case of hobbies, the law of DMU does not apply here. But still, we can't say it's a real exception, because in this case, the assumptions of homogeneity as well as continuity, both these assumptions are violated, because whatever collection is done, first of all, it's not continuous and it's not uniform collections. Homogeneous is also not there. Hence, we may say that these are not the real exceptions. Second case, miser. In case of miser, if a person is miser, then with his increase in the stock of money, his marginal utility for that additional stock of money also rises. He feels that he should have more and more money. But again, in this case, the assumption of rationality is violated. Third exception to the law of DMU, addictions. If the person is addicted to, say, smoking or drinking or taking drugs, a person is drug addict or a person is drunkard, then in that case also, as these people go on consuming, say drunkard is there, he go on consuming more and more alcohol, drug addict is taking more and more drugs, but still their marginal utility never diminishes. On the contrary, their marginal utility from that commodity goes on rising. But if we consider, we come to know that here the assumption of rationality is violated again, because once the person consumes anything, once a person is addicted and he consumes, say, alcohol or drugs, he is not in a position to think rationally, and hence the assumption of rationality is violated here. Then number fourth exception is money. In case of money, what happens is whatever amount of money people have, it is said that MU of money never becomes zero. As the stock of money increases, MU also increases, because money is a medium of exchange and hence we need this to satisfy our various wants. But still, according to some economists, even the MU of money false. They feel that MU of money depends upon your financial condition. Rich people have different MU of money, poor people experience difference in the MU of money, and hence this point also is not a real exception to the law of DMU. Coming to the last exception to the law of DMU, abnormal conditions or emergency conditions. Suppose there are abnormal conditions in a country such as war, if a country is going through war, or drought conditions in the country. In that case also, the marginal utility experience is different. In case of these conditions also, the MU of any particular commodity or service does not fall. On the contrary, it may rise due to the war conditions or drought conditions or any emergency conditions. So that's it. Here we finish with the law of DMU. Now next we'll see the criticisms to the law of DMU. Criticisms of the law. First one, unrealistic assumptions. See, many assumptions such as homogeneity, constancy, continuity are very difficult to observe, and hence this law is criticized by many critics. Second criticism is cardinal measurement. Many critics argue that it is not possible to have cardinal measurement, as we already learned that utility is a purely psychological, that is subjective concept, and hence the utility measurement will differ from person to person and hence impossible to measure. Third criticism against the law is indivisible goods. That means in this law we have assumed the divisibility of goods, but then what about the heavy and bulky items? That means this law does not apply to the bulky goods, heavy goods such as refrigerator, television, because their consumption, we normally purchase such items either one or two at a time and not in more quantity. So this is the criticism against the law. Number fourth criticism is constant MU of money. This law has assumed constant marginal utility of money, but it's not possible in reality, because the marginal utility of money, as I said earlier in this lecture itself, differs from person to person. It depends on the financial position of the person, plus MU of money also depends on the stock of the money with the person, Moreover, whatever is the prevailing pricing level in the market, whatever is the price structure in the market, that also influences the marginal utility of money. Then fifth and the last criticism of the law, a single want. This law is focusing on the satisfaction, maximum satisfaction of a single want, but in reality, people have many wants at a time and they want to satisfy multiple wants at the same point of time. Hence, this law is not that useful and it is criticized due to its assumption of single want satisfaction. So, those were the criticisms of the law. Now let us move on to the last part of this chapter, that is significance of the law. Significance means importance. Importance of the law. Let us see one by one. Number one, useful to the consumer. See, this law is very useful to the consumer because consumer makes his purchase decision on the basis of utility of the product for him, and hence it is useful to the consumer. Second, useful to the government. Government also makes use of this law of DMU, such as framing the taxation policy of the country, trade policies, pricing policies, etc. If you need detail, please go to the detailed lecture which is already uploaded. Point number three, basis of law of demand. This law of DMU acts as a basis of law of demand because considering the utility of the product only, the demand for the product is determined. Then fourth and very important significance of this law, basis of paradox of value. Now let us try to understand this. Here we are going to understand two terms of value. One is, that's why I made a small table on the board. I have mentioned goods, value in use of the goods, that means usefulness of the good in common language, and value in exchange means in simple language we call it price of the goods. See, what happens is some goods are freely available in nature. We have free access to such goods such as air, sunshine, water. They have very high value in use. That means they are very essential for our survival, for our life. But still their value in exchange, that means price, is very less or zero. Actually it's zero. In some cases nowadays it is like we are paying price. For example, we take mineral water and all like that. Whereas in case of some other goods such as gold and diamond, they have less usefulness. Usefulness in the sense they are not very compulsory for our survival. They are not very essential. It's not that we can't survive without them, and hence their value in use is less, but still their value in exchange, that is price, is very high, as you know, the price of gold and diamond. We can't compare it with that of price of air, sunshine and water. So this is what is paradox of value, which is explained and which helps the concept of utility helps in the explanation of this paradox of value. So that's it. This was the entire chapter, utility analysis. I tried to revise it in short. Please let me know how the lecture was. If it is of help, do like and share this lecture. Make sure to subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.